So, the ERAS application service is a centralized application service. It's web-based. We use it for residency and some fellowships. There are now specialties that have their own application service. Like I know that OB is trialing their own application service. So what I am going to say does not apply to that platform, okay? Because I don't know enough about it to coach you on it, but do know that there is another platform out there I know specifically for OB. But ERAS is the service that actually gets all of your documentation in a single place, and you submit your application to your programs through it. All of your institutions, your transcript, your dean's letter, your letters of recommendation go into this platform so that you have all of the things in the one place and can submit your application thusly. The only thing I really want you to know about ERAS, other than it collects all the things, is that you have to be very diligent in knowing what you have uploaded and what you have actually sent to the programs. So just because it is in your packet does not mean the program got it. So you can assign individual letters of recommendation to specific programs. You can have more than one personal statement and send this personal statement to this program and this personal statement to that program. So knowing what you have submitted where is very important. So when you label your documents, when you upload them, it's important that you label them in such a way that you can recognize which letter is which and which personal statement is which, so that you can maximize your experience in the platform. But ERAS is specifically the centralized application service. And it's important that you recognize that because ERAS is not the match. So ERAS collects all the applications and lets you submit them to the programs. The actual match platform is through the NRMP. The NRMP has an entirely separate platform that you have to register and pay for because nothing in this life is free. So make sure that when you register for ERAS, you also register for the match, because just interviewing does not actually mean that you will be in the match unless you apply for the match and submit your rank list. So make sure you do your due diligence. I don't think that you can register with the NRMP until September. So be on the lookout for they usually post on social media when the NRMP site is open for new applicants, but just make sure that you keep an eye on that. Usually the last day for you to register through NRMP is the end of January. So just keep an eye on it. The ERAS application sections. So we have a basic information section that's like your address, your school, do you need a visa? Do you have work authorization? Certifications, ACLS, BLS, PALS, any others. A lot of people put stuff about their involvement with emergency medical services there, or any other training they may have. Nurses have some different certifications that are often there. Biographic information, like how you self-identify, what languages you speak. I will particularly caution you about languages. Write whatever language you want, but be very truthful about your fluency. So if you write that you are fluent in Spanish, I have a faculty member that will conduct your entire interview in Spanish. So make sure that you actually are being honest about your capabilities in that language, should you put it on there. Geographic preferences, which I believe are the same this year. They did not break down they did not change the different geographic areas, but that is still there this year. There's a section about education and training and licensure. If you've had former residency training, it is important to put it there. Any other degrees you may have also can go there, and where you got those, and any licensure. So if you were trained somewhere else, you might be licensed in a different state or something like that. Your experiences section we'll talk a little bit about later. Research and publications, personal statement, and then your supporting documents. So in terms of red flags, the major ones are not passing your boards or having not fabulous board scores. Extended time in medical school. So if you were supposed to graduate in 4 years and you graduated in 5 years, why did that happen? Gaps in professional experience. So you disappeared off the grid for 5 years. What did you do during that time? Time since graduation. So I think in general, they look at more than 5 years since graduation as a red flag. No U.S. clinical experience, and having issues with professionalism. The AAMC actually has guidelines for professionalism. So if you have any questions about what they are looking for in terms of a professionalism deviation, that policy would be helpful to you. So in terms of addressing your red flag, I think it's important that you are clear, honest, and thorough in your explanation about it. Do not blame anyone else as the cause of your red flag. And always focus on what you've learned from the experience and how you've grown from those struggles and how it's made you better at whatever it is you're trying to do. So that way it puts a positive spin on those things and make sure that everybody understands that whatever it was in the past. I think a good place to do that is in your personal statement. There is also a section in ERAS that talks about, I think, personal hardship. So you can address some of it there if it had something to do with personal hardship. And then there's a space also, a small area that allows you to explain deviations in your medical school training. So if you got extended or whatnot, you can talk about that there. For those who had difficulty with passing their boards or had a low score, you can consider taking step 3 to augment your application. I will tell you that step 3 in some states requires you to have been a resident for 6 months or a year. So just make sure that you're aware of what state you are registering for step 3 through, or what country. I'm not sure if the countries have any rules about that, but I do know that individual states in the US do. So if you're trying to take step 3 and you are in the United States, make sure that you register for the test through a state which will allow you to take it without having residency training, if you fit that category. Explain what happened on your boards in your personal statement. And then also, I would get some specialty specific guidance about it, because there are some specialties that are going to be more lenient about some difficulties with your board pass than others. So making sure that you're getting specialty specific guidance is really important, because what you don't want to do is spend thousands of dollars on this application to a specialty that is honestly not going to give you the time of day. So making sure that you have specialty specific guidance is key. Extended time in medical school. Make sure that you explain it somewhere in your application. To be honest, it's really not that uncommon at this point. There are people who take time off for family reasons. There's folks who have healthcare issues or financial reasons why they had to take some time off. They maybe got an extra degree. A lot of the folks from osteopathic schools, I've seen a lot of people taking a year to do an OMM or anatomy fellowship, where they're doing a lot of teaching during that time frame. And then there's folks who took a decelerated curriculum. So maybe they do the first year of medical school over 2 years, so that they have a little bit more time to kind of adjust to the medical school. Let's go with prowess, as well as the amount of information that's being thrown at you in medical school. So I think that having some extended time in medical school is honestly not as uncommon as it used to be, but making sure that you address that somewhere is very important. In terms of gaps in professional experience, so if you had a break in your medical training or medical experience, highlight what you did during that gap. So an example would be like maybe you had a family member that got sick. And so you could talk about how you took time off to take care of your family member and how that's changed your opinion of medicine, and seeing it from the other side showed you how important bedside manner is, and how you explain things really matters to not only patients, but how you are perceived as a professional. I think that's probably really important. I think the biggest thing, though, is always telling the truth, because you would be surprised how many people folks know, and how the truth will eventually come out. So make sure you do a good job of trying to explain whatever it is that happened during your gap. Time since graduation. Every program especially is going to have a different take on that. There were a lot of questions before the session about time since graduation. I'm going to be honest, you can't change that. You graduated when you graduated. It is what it is. I think it's important for you to network with folks in a similar position to see where they have been successful. And I think the longer you have been out of training, the harder it's going to be for you to obtain a residency spot. That's just the truth of the matter. And so I think if you have some US clinical experience, I think it is very helpful. I think if you've had some sort of training in the interim, I think that is helpful. A lot of, I think, the hesitancy is about teachability. And so if you have a way to show that you are still, open to learning, open to guidance, I think is really important. But recognize that that's like a non-movable thing. Like, you graduated when you graduated. So I wouldn't stress a whole lot about that and how to address it. Just explain you graduated a long time ago and now you were to re-enter the match, or to enter the match for the first time because, and just address it that way. And then make sure that you mention that you're teachable and keep it moving, because you can't go back and do it all over again. Which brings me to no US clinical experience. And so I think one of the biggest things with that is that The US has very interesting like training process, and so I think understanding the US healthcare system is very important and what your role in it is. And so having proof that you've spent some time in the US healthcare system is very important. And that would be either through clinical rotations or sub internships. And I specifically say that because a lot of folks do shadowing and observerships without any direct patient care contact, and those generally do not count. Like, list them on your CV, that is fine. You can put it in ERAS, but recognize that that does not count as US clinical experience because you did not actually take care of patients directly. So it does not tell us how you interact with people. It does not tell us how you manage patients. It doesn't give us a good overview of your capabilities working within our system. And so I think it's important that you try your best to get a clinical rotation or a sub internship somewhere and get a letter from that place. Professionalism deviations. This is where your letters of recommendation or evaluation that address your skills in this area are super important. Having someone else be able to speak to your level of professionalism and the how whatever it was addressed, I think is really important. Explaining in your personal statement what you learned from this or what happened, I think is also important, because if you don't explain it, people would just make it up. So make sure that you address it so that people don't come up with their own reason why this professionalism deviation happened. And then expect to be asked about it on your interviews. So have in your mind what it is you want to say about it up front and how you're going to address it, because someone is going to ask. So where to apply? So I think that is like real personal, but I think the biggest things are thinking about location. So where do you have a support system? Where do you have family? The ease of travel to get back to wherever it is you want to go, cost of living, and familiarity with the area, I think are things to take into consideration. And if you're someone who's a free bird who wants to go wherever you want, that's cool. It doesn't matter. Like, you go all anywhere you choose, and if none of these things super matter to you, but these are things that a lot of people take into consideration when they're thinking about where to apply. Think about the type of program. Think about if it's a community program, an academic program, an urban program, a rural program. Is it research focused? If you're someone who absolutely hates research, when you go to your do your research for your programs, you go to their websites. You can talk to, usually there's some sort of residency fair somewhere, or even virtual residency fairs where you could talk to the residents or whatnot. And if you hate research, then maybe that's not the program for you if it's a heavily research focused program. If you're someone who really wants to do academic medicine, you would probably be better served at going to an academic program so that you have access to a lot of the things that you would need for a career in academic medicine, thinking about how to get a faculty position and things like that, I think are important. Other things to consider would be like the size of the program. Are you someone who flourishes with having lots of people around? Then maybe you want a bigger program. If you're someone who needs more individualized attention, then a smaller program would probably be better for you. Think about the length of the program. So in emergency medicine, we have 4-year programs and 3-year programs. I went to a 4-year program for residency, and I am the program director at a 3-year program. I'm not positive that it super matters in terms of the length of the program, but I can tell you for me, I was a little bit younger going to medical school, and I needed another year to kind of come into my own, not only as a professional, but honestly as an adult. And so I'm actually very appreciative for the extra year of residency training that I had. But not everybody feels that way. So I thought it was important to me, but maybe it's not going to be as important to someone else. Think about how long the program has been accredited. If it's a brand new program, they only have 1 class of residents, or you will be in the first class of residents. That might be something to take into consideration. Think about the presence of fellowship programs. If you know you absolutely want to do cardiology as a fellowship, maybe you should choose the internal medicine program that has a cardiology fellowship at that site, so that you can get letters from those people and get a better educational experience in cardiology. Think about benefits and salary, because some of you all don't come alone, right? You have families, you have to think about other people, and those benefits are really going to be important in making sure that your family is well taken care of. Think about work-life balance. Like, what kind of support do you have in the area? And then thinking about like what support services the institution has to support you in your educational journey.